Okay, let me start by clarifying one point. I don't think that international law firms are evil. In fact, I grew a lot in those environments. I became a better lawyer, a better professional. I became more disciplined, more technically sharp, and more resilient. And to this day, I respect a lot of people who chose that career path. In fact, many of those are my friends. But there is one episode which happened during my years in private practice which stayed with me for all my life. And not because it was dramatic, not because someone screamed at me, just because in that precise moment I realized that was not the life I wanted for myself. I simply did not want a part of that to become my life. And the funniest thing about it is that this episode doesn't relate to a legal case, it actually relates to newsletters. But if you don't know me, hi, my name is Frederick, I'm a lawyer based in Brussels, Belgium, and in more than 15 years I built my career path across Europe, and in this YouTube channel I talk about my journey as an international lawyer, about international legal and EU careers, and the lessons I learned along the way, so you don't have to figure it out alone. So here's the story of how I realized that law firm's life was not for me. At one point during my career, I was working for an international lawyer, and amongst the many things, I was reporting to a more senior lawyer. Let's call this lawyer the newsletters lawyer. And from the very beginning with this lawyer, we didn't really click. Sometimes you meet people and you immediately feel warmth, generosity, or like a human feeling. With this lawyer, I didn't feel any of that. And yes, because mainly I felt that the relationship with this lawyer was merely transactional. Everything felt very much strategic, about networking, about positioning, about delivering work. It was very polished professionally, but very cold humanly. And that was an issue for me. So at one point during my stay in this international law firm, this more senior lawyer tasked me with one specific task. It was about newsletters, as I said. I had to monitor corporate deals newsletters all day long. So I had to sign up to US deals, Europe deals, Asia Pacific deals, any time of M&A operation or deal that was happening on a global scale, I had to monitor it. So I signed up to several newsletters, and every time that an alert from one of those newsletters was coming in and hitting my inbox, I would have to A, prepare a client update email, B, send it to a mailing list of potential clients and contacts. And all these client updates emails, I would have to prepare them under the name and signature of this more senior lawyer, of this newsletters lawyer. But in the end, I was doing all the work, and I remember the clear instructions from this lawyer. You have to send those alerts the moment that the newsletter hits your inbox. So not in an hour, not in a day, immediately. And at first I committed to the job as much as I could, but after a little while I understood that this was becoming unbearable. It was psychologically impossible because alerts would never stop. And so my emails never stopped. Mornings, afternoon, nights, weekends. And monitoring US markets, European markets, Asian markets, you were never really off. And at one point, another senior lawyer of the firm asked me to assist them on an investigation. For 7 days, I would have had to be locked inside the premises of a regulator, transcribing corporate statements and staying away from my laptop, and so staying away from these alerts and newsletters. But it was billable work, it was legal work, and so I had to do it because it had to be prioritized over business development. And during those days, I could not simply monitor those newsletters and alerts every 5 minutes. And I explained this very clearly to the newsletters lawyers, but what I received in response was frustration because the client updates emails could not be sent out fast enough. And that was the first moment where I actually asked myself, what are we really optimizing for here? Whose priority are we pursuing? And the situation went on, and the tension started rising between me and this senior lawyer, the newsletters lawyer. And then came Christmas time, and also a moment that I would never forget. It was late in the evening, the office was almost empty, and I was leaving the office premises to then travel back to Sardinia to spend a few days with my family and friends. And as I walk towards the elevator, I meet this senior lawyer, the newsletters lawyer. And, very genuinely, I simply said, by the way, before leaving, I wanted to wish you a Merry Christmas. The issue is that I was literally cut off mid-sentence. I was interrupted before finishing the sentence to be very coldly and very harshly reminded that I would have to send those client updates emails, those alerts, even during my vacations, even during Christmas time, even during New Year's time. So no matter the day, no matter the holidays, no matter Christmas, no matter the fact that I was just wishing you Merry Christmas. And then, all of a sudden, this person turned their back and walked away. And I remember standing there in the elevator and thinking honestly, this can't be true. I was not angry, I was just shocked and a bit surprised about this behavior. Precisely for one thing, because in that very moment, something became very clear to me. I did not want to become that. And during my holidays in Sardinia, I thought a lot about that episode and all the previous episodes with this senior lawyer, about this whole behavior and the tension that was mounting between me and them. And I was thinking a lot about it because I wanted to become a good lawyer. I wanted to become a better lawyer, to evolve professionally. But at the same time, I also wanted to remain a good human being. I wanted ambition, yes. I wanted excellence, yes. But not at the price of basic humanity. Not at the price of becoming somebody incapable of returning a simple Merry Christmas. And that was probably one of the first moments where I understood that possibly private practice and life in international law firms was not the life that I wanted for me in the long term. And I'm not saying that all international law firms and all private practice places work like that. It happens that way, it happens in many other ways. I have many friends and I know many people who are very happy with that. But it was just one of the experiences I had, and one of those experiences which really made me question my choices. And then years passed by, life moved on. I left that firm, I went to other working places, I went to different cities, I evolved as a professional, and then at one point I joined the European Commission. And there is when another episode happened. Because when I joined the European Commission, I posted my job update on LinkedIn, very proud and happy for my new chapter. During my first week at the European Commission, at one point I opened my Outlook inbox and I see an email. It was an email from that very same lawyer. After years of silence, after years of complete absence of communication between us. It was an email about congratulations, about warm wishes, about opportunities to network, to have a coffee, to meet other colleagues, potentially other Italian colleagues from this lawyer's firm, because this lawyer in the meantime, they moved to a new firm. And I remember going through that email, I was a bit puzzled and I thought, that's maybe interesting because some people rediscover your existence just when your job title changes. And look, I don't say this with hatred. I don't carry any resentment. I would still say hello politely to that person even if we met tomorrow. But the thing is that we all do remember how people make others feel. And over time, personally, I realized something very important. I realized that professional success matters. It matters a lot. But the way you treat people, it matters much more. And at the end of your career, people won't remember how fast you forwarded newsletters. But they will remember if you behaved as a decent human being. And honestly, that realization changed my life. And in the end, I never replied to the email that senior lawyer, the newsletters lawyer, sent me when I joined the European Commission. Not because of hatred, as I said, not because of resentment, just because I felt like I had nothing to share with them. But as I said, it's now much clearer to me what people I want to hang out with in a professional environment, what people I want to network with in a professional environment, and what people I don't want to have anything to do with. And again, I don't want to mean that private practice or international law firms are bad professional environments. Of course they are profit driven, of course billable hours count a lot, but hey, they are also made of human beings, or very competent human beings, and sometimes very human beings, so I don't want to condemn them. I just want to say that at one point during my professional journey, I understood what worked and what didn't work for me. And so I followed that route. But if you enjoyed the video, please like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. This would be the best way to help me in my YouTube journey and to keep this channel as alive as possible. And if you have any curiosity or questions about life as an international lawyer, whether in private law firms, whether in private practice or in international institutions, please drop them in the comments. Now, as I always say, to the next one.